You've seen this slide before. I just want to start out with keeping the frame of reference that we're not only talking about a transit system, we're talking about economic development, we're talking about a new gateway to the city and what that brings to the city from an image standpoint. So keep that in mind as we go through this. We're talking a lot about operation issues and so forth, but in the end it's also about city building, placemaking and so forth. That has to be an integral component of the plan as we move ahead. Kind of go back in history, this is showing our Tier 1 analysis. Most of you that have been involved in the process are aware of this. We started out with 10 sites that essentially were all along the BNSF corridor. We defined that as essentially the corridor area that we needed to work on. We had several sites along that. We went through a Tier 1 evaluation. We brought it down to 3 sites. Site A was the area immediately behind us, or right behind ACOB anyway, where the city parking lot is currently located on the north side of Bricktown. Site B was the Santa Fe Station, essentially this site. Site C was the lumber yard, just a little bit south of here at the new boulevard and Gaylord. And we went through a second tier evaluation using these evaluation criteria, making sure we understood how each of these sites worked in terms of multimodal access, connectivity between other modes, did everything, did the program fit on the site? How did they support economic development? Did the urban form work in terms of how does it fit into the framework that's already there or was planned? And are there any environmental impacts relative to displacements or noise, historic property impacts, and so forth? So we went through a quantitative analysis, and I think all of you are aware that Site B, which is the Santa Fe site, wound up ranking much higher because of all of those elements that we went through. Another component that we did is we developed a program, and then we used that program to test these sites as to whether or not it could accommodate all the needs, whether it be the rail service, the platforms, the interior space, parking, what have you. And that was the reason that this site ranked the highest. But obviously, one of the reasons that it ranked very high was the fact that it fit in well from an urban form standpoint and the multimodal access. So this is where we wound up at the end of the last meeting, recommending this site because we felt like that we're going to test this here in a minute, but we felt like it provided adequate capacity, at least through our plan year 2035, in terms of our understanding of what the ridership is. It also allows for economic development, infill opportunities around this site, particularly in Bricktown, as well as the downtown side. Created a great civic presence, used a great civic building and expanded on it. And then also gave us the opportunity to provide a strong pedestrian connection from Bricktown using this facility through to downtown. And then we also determined that we could also provide future expansion potential if it should need to expand beyond the initial design here. So that's where we were last time. I'm going to now start to go back a little bit because one thing we heard at the last meeting was that let's not just look at what's been planned to date. Let's think about other corridors that may happen in the future. So this was the system plan that was developed in 2030 system plan developed in 2006 that shows the commuter rail corridors in blue, Edmond to Norman, and then a branch to Midwest City. The bus rapid transit corridors in green, and in the background in purple are the existing bus network. So what we did is we started to look at other potential corridors that seemed to make sense when we looked at the ridership numbers that we had. And those are adding a commuter rail line from what we're calling Northeast Oklahoma City, or the Adventure District, through to Yukon. A Midwest City line to the airport, so you'd be able to go from Midwest City, connect through the hub, and head out to the airport. These being 2 potentially commuter rail corridors. And then we also looked at the addition of light rail. Essentially, light rail typically will replace, as a system matures, a bus rapid transit corridor as the ridership builds. So we're now showing in pink, going over those purple lines, a light rail line that would start in the northwest, go through downtown, through the hub, and then continue on out and wind up at the airport, so you get that airport connection to Will Rogers Airport. So we made the assumptions that these might happen in the future and that we needed to accommodate those to what Marion's been calling future-proofing this site to make sure that not only works for 2035, but it works beyond that, and we don't wind up with constraints in the future.
Before you do that, let me give some props to the advisory committee. Doug had pointed some of them out. Marion Hutchinson, Debbie Blackburn. Well, Debbie's not on the committee, but she was a great participant in the meetings. What I would tell you all is they pushed us, they challenged us and said, you know, let's make sure that we don't paint ourselves into a corner. If we're going to do this, let's do it right, and let's, as Alan said, let's future-proof this. this so that we don't get to 2035 and rail-based transit has exploded across our region. We're a new place to live. We're one of the hot places to live. Well, not hot in a literal sense, but in a figurative sense. In America, let's make sure that our hub can withstand that plus more. And so we did some more work, and the advisory committee did exactly what they were supposed to do. They gave us advice and counsel and said, you might have missed this one. And so we did a little bit of work, and we appreciate that.
So what you're going to show you now is the little additional work that we did in terms of really trying to understand the phasing of this facility, how it's going to operate, how many trains we're pushing through here in a daily operation. And if you think about this circle essentially being the Santa Fe station area, we've diagrammed this out to kind of show the operational aspects. These are the freight lines that we're currently operating through here. The teal line is Amtrak with 1 train per day. We've now shown that in phase 1 that the streetcar system is in place, which is the purple, and that maybe a couple of bus rapid transit lines are in place. So this is the early phase, if you will, of the hub operation, just adding those additional services essentially to the front door of the facility that interface with it. Phase 2 goes back and looks, is an overlay, we showed this last time, of essentially the fixed guideway today that has those 3 additional commuter rail lines. Although now we're showing Amtrak continuing north as well. The blue is the Edmond to Norman line. The red is Edmond to Midwest City. The yellow is Norman to Midwest City. And you can see on the labels here that we're assuming, based on the ridership model that we have, that in the peak hour we're running 1 train every hour, off-peak 1 train every 2 hours. Although if you're getting on a train in Edmond, you can see there's 2 lines coming in. So you've got 2 trains an hour coming into Oklahoma City. One goes to Norman, one goes to Midwest City, but you can get off in Oklahoma City. So those are fairly typical commuter rail headways, if you will, or placements, or times between trains. We did test this, as we had said last time, and obviously it worked with adding a second platform. Number 1 is the Amtrak platform, number 2 is the River Columbus second platform from here on out. So then we said, okay, let's look at those other lines that we're projecting out, 2035 and beyond. In which case we get the Northeast to Yukon commuter rail line coming through that second platform. And we also add high-speed rail at that time coming through that second platform. So now we're obviously adding more trains, the time between the trains is getting closer together. So we had to go back and we did go back and do a detailed operations analysis to really look at how many trains this platform can accommodate. And this is that detailed operations analysis. I'm going to start on the left and walk you through it all the way to the right.
No, this is the quiz portion of the show. From the back row, cover your left eye and tell me.
Essentially what each color is, you can read the chart here, is each of the commuter rail lines, and the black is high-speed rail. So we've actually taken the train run times. If you get on Oklahoma City, you make 2 stops before you, if you get on Norman, you make 2 stops before you get to Oklahoma City. You get here 25 minutes later. There's another train that leaves an hour later. You have another one coming from Midwest City. This walks through that entire sequence of trains arriving and departing from this hub. And what it told us is that working with those 60-minute headways, we can accommodate. At no time do we get trains closer than about 10 minutes together. The limitation is what happens if we have to add more trains. Or not add more trains, but yeah, add more trains and have closer headways when they start getting closer together. As we showed you in the last meeting, the best way to increase capacity is just starting to add more cars. But at some point, you can only add so many cars. You may have to increase your headways at some point in the future. So this is what we're looking